The book is The Cowasee Basin, the Green Heart of South Carolina. The book was written to exemplify the Cowasee Basin, which is an acronym for Conagree, Wateree, Cate, which is the three rivers that make up the Cowasee Basin. Cowasee Basin is 215,000 acres. It runs from Columbia down the Conagree River to approximately Lone Star, and on the Wateree River it runs down the Wateree from Camden. The two rivers connect about 10 miles below where we're sitting now, and it runs on down to Rimini. The book, it's really got three major themes. It's got the ecological and biological theme, it's got the historical and cultural theme, and it's got the geographical theme. We wanted the book to depict the Cowasee Basin as we saw it, and to educate people about it, and provide a permanent form of education about the Cowasee Basin. We'll take a brief cook's tour around this farm. We will go from here to Goodwill Plantation. It was a working antebellum plantation. While we're there, we'll put a boat into Colonel's Creek and go up Colonel's Creek above an old mill pond. We will go to Cook's Mountain. You'll get a vista and a panorama. You can see long distances from there. It'll surprise you when we get there. But there's 1,200 acres in this farm. We describe a working forest, which means we do on occasion harvest it. One of the things that's really amazing is how fast trees grow in the South. We do prescribed fires, and these woods here were burned intentionally with a prescribed fire last winter, and winter after next we'd be scheduled to come back through here with fire again, so about every third year. This is all part of our managed forest here, and some of these pines are natural regeneration, but some we planted ourselves.
I'm Larry Falconberry, and I'm a member of the Conagree Land Trust in the Cowasee Basin. We're in Goodwill Plantation, and it was named Goodwill by Daniel Ug in the late 1700s. And Daniel Ug was a member of the First Continental Congress of this country. And when he retired from Congress, he moved to Goodwill and lived here until his death. Well, we have 37 historical sites on Goodwill. You came out Garnish Ferry Road. Most people don't realize that in the 1700s there was a ferry here, and it was operated by Garner, and he lived here on Goodwill. And 99% of the people in Columbia don't put that connection together. This is one of the most historical tracts of land in central South Carolina, and not many people know it. We're standing in front of the Hayward House. This house was built in 1858 by E.B. and Charles Hayward. During the Civil War, the Haywards were the largest slaveholders in the United States, and so they moved all their slaves from the coast to Goodwill. If you drive into Goodwill, you will drive in the same way that over 2,000 slaves walked into Goodwill during the Civil War. In 1863, Richland County records show that there were 976 slaves that taxes were paid on, but records that we have show that there were over 2,000 here. We're standing in front of two of the original slave cabins that remain at Goodwill. When a Union officer came to Goodwill to tell the slaves that they were free, he had Ishmael, the chief driver, to go over the plantation and have all the slaves to come to this point. And it took him about 2 or 3 hours to get them all here, but they all gathered here, and he told them that they were free. The reaction of the slaves was somewhat surprising. They just milled around for an hour or so, and Ishmael told them to go on home, go to bed, be ready to go to work the next morning. This water wheel was brought here in the 1700s by Daniel Ug, cast iron water wheel. It was at a mill here for grinding, it was a grist mill for grinding corn and wheat or whatever else they might have for food. We're inside the mill house at Goodwill. The Ug water wheel outside that powers our Hayward corn mill here. Most of this equipment in here was purchased in the late 1800s by P.T. Barnum, so we have the the UG water wheel powering the Hayward corn mill. This is the corn mill. We have the cover off of it. This is the top stone. There's a stone in the bottom that's stationary. It's called a nether stone. And this is the top stone that turns. And this device lowers the top stone down. And when you're grinding, you will always lower your top stone down until you hear it touch the bottom. And then you back it off to whatever, grit that you want to grind. So this is the device to lower that stone.
We're now at the mill pond on Goodwill Plantation. We're getting ready to take a little boat cruise up Colonel's Creek. We are in Colonel's Creek, which provided the water to build this mill pond. They used the water for power to run the mill house that we just saw. The mill pond was built in the early 1800s. This was the water source for that mill, which was the heartbeat of the whole plantation. Colonel's Creek is a major tributary of the Wateree River, which is one of the three rivers that make up the Cowasee Basin. Cowasee stands for Conagree, Wateree, Cate, which are the three rivers that comprise the basin. And this is a major tributary of the Wateree. When you ask about war heroes, the best known one that frequented this area was Francis Marion. He was known as the Swamp Fox, was a Revolutionary War hero. He did a lot of skirmishing through this whole area of South Carolina, but he was known as the Swamp Fox because he would hit the British kind of in almost guerrilla-like and then escape into the swamp, and they couldn't find him, and so they dubbed him the Swamp Fox. Also in this area was General Thomas Sumter. The town of Sumter is named for him, right across the river from here. The British and the Continental Army came right through this area on their way to the Battle of Camden at the Borough House, which is directly across the river from Goodwill. Bivouacked at the Borough House on the way to the Battle of Camden, and a few weeks after that, Nathaniel Greene, the Southern Continental Army commander, also bivouacked his troops there, and all of that was within a couple of miles of where we are right now. But a very interesting piece of Revolutionary history. A real notable came through here in 1540, and that was Hernando de Soto, early Spanish conquistador explorer, but he came right up this side of the Wateree River and in search of Indian gold, traveled from roughly the confluence of the Wateree and the Conagree up the west side of the Wateree to the town of what is now Camden. But we're getting ready to go now to Cook's Mountain. Cook's Mountain would be one of the highest points in the Cowasee Basin. The altitude here is 374 feet. The altitude at the river behind me, the Wateree River, is roughly 100 feet. Basically the equivalent of a 27-story building just rising almost right up out of the river swamp. It's known as a monadnock, and it's my understanding that a monadnock is land that washed away around it as opposed to a regular mountain that rises up from underneath. The significance is primarily geographical, but the fact that it's such a large promontory in what is mostly surrounded by lowland. It's named for a man named James Cook, and he lived in this area. He was one of the early surveyors of this part of South Carolina. It's just a great place to come and look and get a vista of the Cowasee Basin. All of the proceeds of the book go to the Conagree Land Trust and the work that we do in land preservation here in the Cowasee Basin.